Shot through the heart, and you're to blame, darling. You give love. Welcome back, everybody, to Simply Amazing.
What do we give love?
I don't know. What do we give love?
That's a great question. I
You
think
guys,
we should make that a podcast episode.
yeah, we should. That's going to be our next podcast. You guys, I want you guys to let us know, what do we give love? That is our new question of the day. That's our question of the day. We're going to start a new podcast section called Question of the Day. Question of today: what do we give love? Wrong answers only. Wrong answers only. If you answer a bad name, you're wrong. Well, hi guys, I'm Lisa. Welcome back to Simply Amazing. We're so happy to have you. You can, the OG Nocturne or Nocturne. And I'm joined here, of course, by the fabulous, the wonderful, the absolutely amazing.
If you keep giving me any more praise, I'm going to explode. I am Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bye, y'all. Just happy to be here because this episode, guys, I'm going to be doing a lot of learning myself because Lisa is here to educate me and everyone listening on one of her favorite characters of all time.
One of, or my favorite character of all time. I'm so excited. We are going to be talking about the one, the only, the queen, Talia Josephine Wagner, aka Nocturne, aka my queen. I love her so much. We'll do a quick overview. We're not going to go too deep into it today because, you know, there's a lot to talk about in her some 80-something issues that she has appeared in between different universes and the 616. But I'll give you a brief history or herstory on my queen, Talia Josephine. Just, you know, a real quick brief recap. In Millennial Visions, which came out either 1999 or 2000, she was featured in a... so this comic book that came out at the very end of the 90s. And it was meant to be like a bunch of different creators came up with their own ideas of like future or alternate types of X-Men teams or ideas. And there were all these different ideas that were thrown out there. Lots of different like different concepts that were played with in different ways. And one of the concepts that was thrown out there was by an artist that I have met many times and is very, very nice, Jim Calafiore, which I hope I'm saying his last name right. He created what is called Professor W's X-Men, which has now become immortalized in Earth 2182, which I do believe is the correct Earth number. Yes, Earth 2182, which I also am very close to because I was born in 1982. So anyway, so Earth 2182, which is Professor W's X-Men. In Professor W's X-Men, we have a much older version of the X-Men. It is run by a geriatric Wolverine who is paralyzed. He can no longer use his powers, really. He's completely paralyzed. He's basically the Professor X character of the X-Men, and the field leader of the X-Men is Nightcrawler, who is also accompanied by his 20-year-old daughter, Nocturne, aka Talia Josephine Wagner. Well,
Such a good name.
Isn't it gorgeous? It's an absolutely gorgeous name. She goes by TJ. She prefers TJ. Her parents call her Talia, and her lovers call her Talia. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, she goes by TJ. So she is a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky, very similar to her father in a lot of ways, girl. She was raised at the Xavier Institute amongst all of the X-Men, essentially. But she has the very interesting benefit, and this is one of those things where I really wish they would explore her more. And again, I am really biased. So the thing about her that's really cool is her mother happens to be the Scarlet Witch. So Talia Josephine Wagner is not just the daughter of Nightcrawler. She is the daughter of Nightcrawler and the Scarlet Witch, which also technically makes her the granddaughter of Mystique. And depending on where you stand on the retcon, possibly also the granddaughter of Magneto.
Yes, that is still her father. Marvel fixed
no,
it
me too.
immediately.
I'm
Fix it more than you
100%.
already have. Do
Yeah,
better.
I'm 100% there too. Like, I'm still, Magneto is still Scarlet Witch's father. Total aside, by the way, I was at a work event this past week, 2 weeks ago, and I was with a coworker who is not like a comic book reader, but she watches the movies. And I mentioned something about how Magneto and Scarlet Witch are not related. And she was like, wait a minute, I thought he was her father. And I'm just saying that is how in the cultural zeitgeist it is. Someone who doesn't read the comics is like, I thought they were related, so that's a total aside. So Talia Josephine, she is raised by her father and mother, basically, mostly at the Xavier Institute. But again, going back to this amazing opportunity we have to talk about a child of two teams, because the Scarlet Witch is still a member of the Avengers in her world. So you have and in her world, it's very interesting because the X-Men are considered to be like outcasts, and the Avengers are like these great heroes. So then you have those two sides of things. We don't get a lot of stuff from her world. We have one story where we do get one story that's told in her world, which is kind of interesting. I'm not going to go too into detail about it because we can do a whole episode on like the ins and outs of Professor W's X-Men Earth 2182, which we should do an episode on it because it's actually a really cool universe. Instead, we'll just talk about TJ and how awesome she is. What I really like about her is that she is not her father. People like to act like she's very interchangeable for Kurt, but she's not. She's not religious. She's not, she's actually way more outwardly sexual than Kurt is. Like, she's like wearing hot pants all the time and like showing off her bod. She is very, she's very much more in your face about that kind of stuff than Kurt is. Like, way less conservative about that, which is very cool. She has a relationship in her home world with James Proudstar. And then when she ends up on the Exiles, she ends up getting a relationship with John Proudstar. So that's interesting. She's like pretty much exclusively dates Proudstars. So
That's kind of messed up. You know what? Kind of similar to how her father has a bad habit of his dating habits aren't the best either.
Yeah, but at least like she's dating brothers who aren't related to her. So that's the good point.
Yeah, but she's just trading off brothers and what? That's so weird, bruh. But that's
I
true.
don't know. So I mean, to be fair though, like her pickings was slim. Like, it's not like she had a whole lot to choose from on the Exiles. It was like Mimic was taken, and then her other choice was Morph.
I mean, they could have written her as not straight, and that would have done.
They could have done that
not
too.
a straight character.
They could have done that too. And honestly, I kind of read her as bi, but I mean, so there is some controversy around her because she lost a pregnancy that is not was not written clearly. I confirmed it with the writer that it was an abortion, but it's not clear in the issue. So it's like one of those, but again, it's like one of those, one of those things where,
well, I mean, that word truce matters too, right? It sounds like that's not clear. It sounds like it wasn't clear in the story of whether or not she lost a pregnancy or whether she ended the pregnancy.
So essentially, so we will have to do an episode on this entire issue because it's one of my absolute favorite issues of comics in general. But so basically, keep in mind this issue was written in like 2003, 2004. So, we're talking almost 20 years ago. Essentially what happens is she gets pregnant by Thunderbird, who desperately wants the child because he doesn't think he can have children because he's been turned into like this cyborg creature by Apocalypse.
Well, then, that's rough.
Which is interesting because like Wanda marries a freaking cyborg creature. Is that like a genetic thing? Like, Maximoff women just love Cyborg men. I don't know.
Look at
So
the parental parallels coming through.
I know, right? So so basically Apocalypse turns him into this like cyborg creature. She ends up pregnant. He's just like overjoyed. He's just like, this is gonna happen. She's very clearly not as overjoyed. Like she's like, all right, we're doing it. Okay. And he's just so happy. But then he sacrifices himself to save her and to save the world, basically. And so then she has to move, like, then she has to go on. And essentially, there's an issue where, like, basically, what happens next is one of the other characters asks her about the baby. She's like, I lost it. It's gone. I don't want to talk about it. We never hear about it. Issue 16 comes up where she talks about how she just couldn't do it without him. And she's so sorry. And that's where it's like, I think it's heavily implied that she aborted the child because she just like couldn't handle it without him, which I think tracks for the character. And this goes back to me, like, you know, we talked about this in an earlier episode when we talked about how Kurt has like Kurt's faults and how he like can't help but you know, help a damsel in distress, and sometimes that gets him into trouble. And like this is something that really attracts me to her as a character, is like she has her own faults too, in that, you know, I really admired this part of her character because to me it humanized her so much, because it was like, you know, this made sense to like, so this was a choice, this was a decision that made a lot of sense to me, because I'm thinking of it from a point of view of when I was reading this issue, I was her age, right? And I had an upbringing that was very like, that was, I would say, similar to what hers would have been. I mean, obviously I wasn't raised by superheroes, right? But I was raised in a suburb of New York City that was relatively middle class, in a middle class environment. So for me, like her decision, as heartbreaking as it was, and like as an adult going towards 40, I look at that decision now in a different lens, because I look at it now from Thunderbird's side of it, and I'm like, wow, like that's heartbreaking. Like that, you know, this was his child that he wanted so desperately, and then, you know, but again, it's her choice, right? So it's like it goes both ways.
It sounds like it's a really good example of, I mean, that's why it's controversial, right? Because this whole, anytime you talk about things like, anytime you talk about abortion and stuff, it's always controversial because yeah, there's not only so many different points of view, but there's so many extreme points of view, right? There's the point of view of, well, it's her body, she should do what she wants, and then there's the other point of view of, oh, but that's his kid, she can't just not consider how he feels and blah blah blah, you know. But again, that's why I love comics. They can address these real issues,
yes,
and they can create this dialogue where we can talk about these things. And I think it's important that they do that. So based on what you've told me about the story, I don't think that was a poor choice in writing to bring that story up, and I don't think it was a poor choice for
no,
how she decided to go about it. I think it's a story that was told and needed to be told, and it sparks a good conversation, which is what comics can do.
it was beautifully handled. It was very delicately handled. The issue is it wasn't like made crystal clear, because they just couldn't say in the comic like, oh yeah, she aborted the baby. I guess they just didn't,
Right.
you know, which I actually appreciated, because I felt like it added to kind of the delicacy of the story, rather than just hitting you over the head with like, she aborted the baby.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
like,
I mean, there's
and let's be real,
I imagine
like
I
yeeting
imagine
babies runs in her family too. So
But I imagine the reason though behind they couldn't say like, oh, unfortunately she aborted the baby. Like there's a way to say that. It's not easy to say, but it's a real thing. But I imagine the reason they couldn't say that in the comic is because again, editorial said you
oh
can't
yeah,
be that direct about it. It will
of
be
course.
it's already gonna be controversial. This is too much. You have to be subtle about it. And actually, yeah, I don't want people just going like, oh, ha ha, abortion. Like it's not a funny thing or a joke or anything, but at the same time, we need to be able to talk about stuff like that. And the comics medium, it's such a great format where, yeah, you can write it delicately and say, unfortunately, she had to do abortion. And it was a hard decision. Abortion, and I'm getting a little winded here, not trying to be political or anything,
No,
but
of course, of
too
course.
bad, it's morals. It's not a easy decision ever
No.
to do that for anybody. And so the fact that they showed that in the story was good. And to me, yeah, I mean, it sounds like they did it pretty well, but at the same time, I think it's important to have stories, where it can be clear that, hey, this was an abortion. Was it easy? No, because that is
Yes.
a real thing. And that's what comics do. Comics let us escape from the world, but they also deal with real issues. So yeah, that's
I
that's incredibly fascinating. I never knew that about Talia's story at all.
I totally love that you said that because it makes me feel really good about how conflicted I feel about it now because that to me makes the story even better because I do feel conflicted about the story. When I was younger I didn't. I do now. Um because of just things that have come out since then. But anyway,
Mhm.
just going back to the basics of the story though is, I understand the decision she made, having been someone who was ripped away from her family and everything she knew and loved, thrown
Mhm.
into this place of complete, like, as an exile, you don't know what's going to happen next. And she's now built a family around that with the other exiles, and now the father of her child is taken from her. And it's just like, well, how and the thing is like what's this baby now, like who knows what this baby is or will be or can be, like can this baby even exist, because can she even go back to her world with it, like this baby is not part of her world. So it's just all of these questions. I can see her making that decision and her being like, I have to make this decision, but the conflict again comes from just how much I know Thunderbird wanted that fucking baby. Like that's where the conflict comes from. How much he wanted that baby. And like to the point where in Exiles, I think it's 89, they revisit Thunderbird because Thunderbird doesn't die. He's in a coma. And he's stuck on this Skrull world in a coma basically, and they have to move on without him. And we revisit him in Exiles 89. And again, this is like, so this happens so Thunderbird goes into a coma in Exiles 10, I think, 9 or 10. And in Exiles 89, 80 something years, 80 issues later, we revisit him. And he's dreaming about the birth of his child. And that's where it's like, it just hits you in the freaking heart. You know what I
I
mean? It's
mean,
like, oh my
no,
God.
absolutely. And I'm just noticing this theme with you, Lisa, where you're a huge sucker nowadays for
Shut
people who
up.
no, I say that lovingly. You're a huge sucker for people that really want kids, but they can't have them, or they, for whatever reason, whether they're physically not capable or life is just terrible to them or whatever, you're like, oh my God, but you deserve a kid. And you
Okay,
know what? That's so true.
girl, this is the difference between being almost 40 and being in your 20s. I'm going to tell you right now. That's what this is.
I
Because
believe
when,
it. No, I absolutely believe it. I mean, in my 20s now, I feel different than I did when I was in my teens about the
mhm.
idea of kids and settling down and stuff. It changes throughout your decades. And yeah, I mean, in general, it just sounds like this is such a foundation for Talia's character, and that she, was put in this very real and hard situation, but she still did what was right for her. And if you think about it, that's exactly what both her parents would have done or would have wanted her to do, right? Was do what was best for her and taking care of herself. That is what Kurt would believe in. That is what
Oh,
Wanda would
yes.
believe in.
Although I'm going to go out and say this. I think Kurt would have a real hard time with the fact that his daughter had an abortion.
Yes.
And I like,
But I think at the end of the day, even if you struggle with that, one, I don't think he'd be mad at her. I don't think anger would be the emotion he
no,
felt,
no, no.
or one of them. And
I think he'd
two,
be really sad.
yes, and I mean, again, how do you think she feels it? That's the only thing that
Oh
bothers
yeah,
me
no.
about this stuff. When you talk about stuff like this, it's yes, consider all sides, and the biggest part of this is that it's complicated. There's no right way to feel. There's nobody that's right, other than everybody's going to feel some way, and you have to acknowledge that everybody is allowed to their feelings, but at the end of the day, the person that it's happening to is the one that gets to make the decision, no matter how
Yes,
hard it is
exactly.
for them or everybody else. And yeah, so I mean, what happened after that story? Because I mean, is that like the
So
pivotal
much.
story with her? Because
It's
we spent so
that's
much time talking about it.
I mean, it's one of probably the most important stories early on. It's the most important story early on. I mean, so much happens after that. I'm not gonna. I'll give like a general overview after that. Basically, like she stays with the exiles for a while, and then she ends up coming over to 616. She meets her dad, Kurt, and he loves her, and they become friends. And she ends up with the new Excalibur for a while, and she becomes BFF with Dazzler, and she has a crush on Juggernaut for some reason.
Hate that though.
I love that she and Dazzler become BFFs because also in Nocturne's homeworld, she is the lead singer of her own band called the Butt Monkeys.
That's amazing. And you know what? I'm already going to tell you right now, Lisa, I don't know the context. I know there's probably an age difference. Don't care. I'm going to ship Dazzler and Nocturne all I want now. Thank you for coming on TED Talk.
Someone, I just recently read someone like wrote a Dazzler and Nocturne like fic. Like someone just wrote one. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. I'll do it. Because I love Dazzler. And you know what's funny is I'm a karaoke maven. I love karaoke. I don't know if you noticed that from me singing in almost every single episode.
I never would have guessed. Never.
So, yeah, funny story. We were going to take the part of Dixie Chick's Gaslighter song that goes, Gaslighter, and we were going to put it in the episode every time we talk about Charles Xavier. And I cut it out, and Lauren was like, I don't know, maybe we should like get someone to sing it for us because about copyright. And I was like, well, I'll sing it. And she was like, yeah, I bet you would. So
I'm still waiting. We're still, it's coming though, guys. It'll happen. And you know what? Back with the Dazzler thing, I love Dazzler. And you know what? Dazzler is one of those characters to me that she's that straight girl that's actually a very good ally and all this stuff. But she's a straight girl that especially, you know, us sapphics, like, she's a straight girl that we all fall for when we're first coming out, and we all know, like, there's nothing you can do about it. So, like, that's kind of how I feel like with Nocturne. Like, that would be more fun. Like, why'd you have a crush on Juggernaut? Dazzler's right there. She can be your best friend, and you can have a crush on her.
I don't know. So here's the thing. I feel like, so I felt like, so New Excalibur felt very much like Claremont was really trying to kind of play with a lot of the stuff that he was playing with in classic Excalibur. And it felt a little bit like he was going for another love triangle, like he had in classic Excalibur. And in classic Excalibur, it was the Kitty, Rachel, Alistair love triangle. And so in New Excalibur, it was like the Allison Dazzler or the Allison TJ Kane love triangle, because it was like Kane liked Allison, Allison didn't like anybody, TJ liked Kane. It was weird. But the thing was like, I'm sitting here reading it and it's like, Kane is gay. Kane is a gay man who loves, like, Kane loves Dazzler like the leave Britney alone guy loves Britney. Like,
right.
You know, like that's not, like, it's not that kind of relationship. It's not like that. So it's like, that was my whole thing with it, was like, no, Kane is gay. He wants tickets he wants backstage passes to Dazzler's show so he can like bring his boyfriend Black Tom, and like that's what he wants. And like, maybe, yeah, TJ can totally make out with her. I'm down for that. 100% down for that. Definitely.
Yeah. It's happening. There's going to be the yearning. That's how she's going to realize they're coming out. She's going to yearn for Dazzler, and Dazzler's going to be like, oh, honey, I know, and I love you. But, like, it's going to be that whole story. I'm here for it, and Dazzler is amazing, and now we have to do a Dazzler app. Anyways, please continue.
We're going to be doing a Dazzler app. And honestly, it 100% tracks that Wanda's kids are queer, right? So, like...
Yes! And also... I don't believe Kurt is straight, but that's a whole other episode too.
Yeah, that's a whole other. We'll get into that one day. We'll get into that. But yeah, no. So so where were we? So yeah, she ends up in New Excalibur. She's running around with them. She's with the Brotherhood for a while. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens with her. Just a lot of bad. She has a stroke. Oh
God.
I don't want to talk about it. I have a friend. My friend Justin still makes fun of me about the stroke every once in a while. Every once in a while, we'll be playing like Jackbox, and he'll just put Nocturne has a stroke as like an answer.
Oh my God!
I know, like, they make fun of me for it, but whatever. I can take it. I can take it. It's okay. But yeah, just a lot of bad stuff happens. I mean, she hasn't really been used recently in much of anything at all, unfortunately. In House of M, she was like briefly there because they were like hunting her because she had Magnus blood and they didn't know who the hell she was. And then in recently she showed up in the newer version of Exiles that had like the Blink who was like Caribbean Blink.
So Yeah. So do you think that they will bring her back during this Krakoan era? Because I
God,
haven't seen
God,
her
I hope
yet.
so. God, I hope so. Do you know where? I'm going to tell you where they left her, and God, I hope they bring her back because where they left her is just. I'm so up. It's they have to. So basically, what ended up happening with the exiles was like they ended up in um, like Agrabah, like Aladdin land, like where Aladdin lives. Um, and like they all were, um, they were all characters in like the legend of Ali Baba and his 40 thieves or whatever that is, you
Hmm.
know. And so Nocturne was like her role was like being married to the Sultan. And then at the end of the arc, the Sultan like leaves and is like, "Well, why don't you just stay and be the queen?" And she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna be the queen then." And now she's just the queen of Agrabah, and it's like, I,
Okay.
I don't. Okay,
No, but she's got it now that Krakoa is a thing and she's a mutant. She's got to get an invite to Krakoa.
yeah, but she's like in this weird alternate reality that's not. I don't even know where she is. I mean, they'll. I mean, eventually they'll bring her back. I'm sure. I hope.
Hashtag bring Nocturne back. We'll
Yes.
start the
Hashtag
trend.
bring Nocturne back. Everybody post that, please.
We're gonna get going. Marvel, you're gonna pay attention to us. I know Hickman's leaving, but too bad. Get it together.
I know someone will bring it. Leah Williams. Leah, text me. We're gonna do this. We're gonna bring Nocturne back. I love it. No, she's wonderful. I love her. Here's the thing about certain characters. Certain characters come into your life at a time where you relate to them so thoroughly and so much that it just doesn't matter what else happens with them. They're always going to stay with you, and that is what she is for me. Because I was her age when I started reading that book with her in it, and I just saw myself in her so much when I was reading that book. It just because and it made and it's not just that. So she was a 20-year-old who was taken from her home and thrust into exile, and I was a 20-year-old who had gone away to college for the first time reading this book. It just everything about it I related to so much, and that's part of my love for her. And I'm not expecting people out there to love her too. You don't have to, guys. It's okay. And if you want to come make fun of me for loving Nocturne and call her a stroke, it's okay too. I love it. I just
Don't do
love her
it.
so
I will
much.
personally fight you. Lisa may be okay with it, but I'll
Oh
fight you. So that's how
no,
it's
I
gonna go.
love it. I love any reason and an opportunity to talk about her because she's my fave. We'll do more episodes about her, I am sure. But like I said, we all have those characters. I had a conversation with Chris Claremont about this when I met him at Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and I even said to him, I was like, I said to him, I was like, how we have these characters that we are so in love with and that are ingrained in us, and when we see certain writers do things with them that we don't agree with, and he looked at me and he said, oh, I know. So
Oh, I'm sure he's got some names and issues he can pull
oh,
out
he's
if
got
he
a
needs
list.
to.
He's got a list. Exactly. He's got a list. But yeah. So I mean, I feel like I could keep talking. I've got so much more I could say. There's a lot I would love to see them do more with her with. I would love to see her deal with her mother more. I mean, I felt like House of M was a missed opportunity because House of M was a whole story about Wanda wanting to connect with her children, and it's like, and here's one of her kids running around 616. Like,
She's an underappreciated, undervalued character, and she definitely needs to be explored more. It sounds like so. Yeah, thank you for the overview. I've already learned like 1,000 things I didn't know about her. I feel like
oh,
even just
thank
in
you.
20 minutes. So
Yes. Oh, I want to add one more little thing that I found out at Comic Con that I thought was really cool because I met up with Jim Kelkior at Comic Con, and he remembered me from when I met him in 2004, which I guess, I mean, he probably doesn't meet that many people who are obsessed with Nocturne, so maybe it wasn't that weird.
yeah.
Um, and I asked him why they chose Scarlet Witch for the mother because he chose Nightcrawler for the father, and I asked him who made the decision. Who was it that chose Scarlet Witch? Was it him or Judd Winnick? Because Judd Winnick was writing Exiles, and he said Judd was the one who chose it. And I asked why, because since the decision was made that Scarlet Witch would be Nocturne's mother, um, Scarlet Witch as a character has just exploded in popularity and importance in the Marvel Universe. I mean, like between Avengers Disassembled, House of M, Decimation, all these different things, she has become like a very important character in the Marvel Universe. And she just wasn't back then. So it was like, what made you make that decision? And this is literally what he said to me. He was like, she was Eastern European. So that's all it did. And that's how we end up with a legend. So there you go.
I love it. I am excited to read the back issues of Exiles because I do have some. I just have not read them yet.
Girl, Exiles is so good.
I am excited and hoping that we do see her in this Krakoan era, especially now that Kurt is getting a lot more attention in this era, which is great as well. And we're also seeing Scarlet Witch still be very important, and even more so, as the months and years go on, and now as she's a character in MCU. So I'm super excited. And
her grandmas, don't forget her grandmas are taking over. So
yes, and y'all should come yell at us about your thoughts. Let us know what you think about Talia Josephine, and let us know anything else you want to learn about her, because I guarantee you we'll do more episodes on her. And let us know if you think we're going to see her in the Krakoan era too, because the whole Darkholm Wagner family is making the biggest comeback yet, and hopefully she'll be a part of it. Yell at us on our website, simplyamazingpod.com.
Absolutely. And listen, those Maximoffs aren't hiding either. They're making a comeback too. So there's no reason why she can't come too.
We're gonna get a family war coming up. The two sides of the families fighting. It's
oh my gosh! Could you imagine that Nocturne shows up in the middle and goes, "Stop! Stop!"
It's gonna be some Romeo and Juliet shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, I would love it. I would love it. Like the Hatfields and the McCoys, and she just runs down the middle in like a beautiful flowing dress, and she's like, "No, stop!" I don't know what I'm thinking of right now. Anyway, sorry. You can cut this part.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
Okay. Oh, you guys, you can follow us on our Twitter at Simply Amazing. That's AMZING pod. You can also find us on Instagram at the same thing. Our website is simplyamazingpod.com. You can find me at the OG Nocturne. That's NACHTURNE. Not spelled like my darling Talia Josephine, but my other way. And did you already give yours?
No, you can find me on Twitter at friendlymvhdbi. Come yell at me, all that cool stuff, and it's gonna be a great time.
It is. And for those of you out here, thank you so much for listening. If you love us, listen to us, subscribe, follow us, rate us, review us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to us. And do not forget to be, as if you could ever forget to be, because naturally you are simply amazing.